Hi, and thank you for tuning into this video. Don't get too attached to the fact that my face is visible as I'm talking to you. I did my makeup today because I went on a podcast, which is something that I was doing like a whole heck of a lot earlier this year when I was first kind of speaking out against the cult I was part of in India. But yeah, I haven't done a podcast since I think Chris Shelton's interview was the last one I did. And no, Dr. Rachel Bernstein was the most recent one I did before today. Anyhow, this is turning into a grandma story. So today I did a podcast with a guy called Kavork. His channel is called Key Epic. And I didn't know what to expect going in because like his claim to fame is he's done these like viral prank videos. So like up until the time that he was actually like chatting with me about experiences he's had in meditation and like downloads of information that have come to him when he has kind of eliminated fluoride and started getting spiritual, like up until that moment, I was like half expecting to get pranked, and I was up for it thinking like this is gonna be a fun day. But anyway, no, we had a really cool conversation, mainly about spiritual experiences. It went a little bit into veganism and like foods that I recommend for people if they're transitioning to a vegan diet, which was a lot of fun. That's totally in my wheelhouse. But yeah, I figured since I did my makeup for that podcast anyway, I might as well also do a little bit of a video with my face showing for my YouTube channel. But you know, to be totally honest, I have more fun doing the draw with me videos than I ever do with the camera facing my face. And I was thinking about that. Like I've been questioning, is it because I have residual body issues from getting bullied when I was a kid? Or is it because I'm just like a lazy ass and I don't want to do my makeup if I'm not going out somewhere? Or is it because I feel somehow awkward talking to the camera? But no, I don't think it's any of those issues. I think that ultimately on this side of a video, like I know, like when I read your comments afterwards, I know who's watching me and what you're thinking about, and we can make it conversational. But like, dude, it's kind of hard to maintain a one-sided conversation with your own damn self. Like you sound like a crazy person if you're just standing around in your place, or sitting as I am right now in your place talking to a camera. And like I did like a whole lot of that since I started this YouTube channel in 2011. Pretty much all of my videos were talk to the camera style videos, and some of them are super cringy. Like I was re-watching some of my old content just out of curiosity. Some of the videos where I was like in that cult in India, I haven't deleted them. I've just like made them private so nobody else can search them. I tried watching one just to see like what did my brainwashed cult self sound like, and it's embarrassing. It's cringy. I don't think I would ever have that same cringe reaction in the future if I look at a video and see like it's my sketchbook open and I'm drawing, because like fashions change from year to year, hairstyles change from year to year, our physical appearance changes. Like this at one point was like a baby with a poopy diaper. Like this a few decades from now is going to be an older woman, like maybe gray haired, maybe wrinkled, probably not too quickly because I am vegan and all, and you know, we age like fine wine, those who have eliminated cruelty and animal products. But the face is not something that's going to be a good, you know, emblem of who we are. I was thinking about this the other day, like looking at one of my sketchbook videos, thinking if a total stranger on the street was given either a picture of what I look like a picture of my face, or a copy of one of my drawings, that stranger would learn more about me from one of my drawings than from my face. You know, unless that person is like a trained Vedic face reader. Maybe like, okay, there might be some psychic people out there who can look at someone's face or look into their eyes and get to know their being. But for me anyway, and I'm an art lover as much as I am an artist. I love the fantasy art of people like Josephine Wall and Brian Froud. I love like the psychedelic art of Alex Gray. I've got a lot of artists who are like my favorite. Maybe when I turn the camera towards my sketchbook instead of my face, I'll show you some of my favorite art books so you can see like whose art I'm talking about here. But it's always kind of funny. Like I felt like I knew Josephine Wall from her fairy paintings and her earth activism paintings, where she's painted like Gaia surrounded by animals and rainbows on one side and like destruction and human engineering disasters on the other. I felt like I knew her. And then one day, I was working at Dragon Space in Vancouver at the time. There was a new shipment of her books. And on the top of that pile of her books, there was like a picture of her face. And at first when I opened that package, I was looking at that thinking like, wait, who's this lady? And it took me a minute to process and realize that's the face behind her art. And the same thing happened the first time I saw Brian Froud. He didn't look the way I had pictured him. And then that same thing happened when I saw Alex Gray. And I mean, this might happen to you sometimes if you hear a song and you're vibing to it and like you really like the music, and then you see the band and they don't look at all how you pictured them. I kind of feel that there's a reason for that, and it's that our creations speak more of who we are than our physical appearances do. I mean, this might be an interesting point of debate in the comment section. What do you think about that? Like, what do you prefer? Do you feel a greater connection to a YouTuber if you're looking at their face as they speak, or if you're looking at their art as they speak? Personally, I prefer looking at somebody's art. One of my absolute favorite channels is Peter Draws, and he rambles about stuff. Like, he draws as I do, like very similar abstract flowing compositions. His are a little bit more angular and a bit more structured and a little bit more, I guess, masculine, for a lack of a better word. He sometimes puts like mechanical stuff or like monsters or monstrous stuff into them. They're not my aesthetic, but a person who doesn't really know the minutia of details, like how I like to do flowy, flowery inspired, might say that we draw similarly. Anyway, I like watching his videos because as he draws and as he speaks while he draws, it feels so conversational and so much fun. I also love this smaller YouTube channel. I've mentioned this in other videos. It's called The Paper Letter Blog. And this girl named Yvonne, I think? No, that's wrong. I'm sorry, I totally forget her name right now. But she's in the Netherlands, and she does these videos where she crafts. And I think she speeds them up and then she does a voiceover afterwards. But she she makes things out of paper. I'm gonna show you a junk journal later in this video when I'm doing my art stuff. But she crafts, she makes envelope flip books, she makes gifts for her pen pals, she cuts out stickers and places washi tape and does all that kind of crafty goodness that I just love. And as she does that, she just talks about her life. She talks about her psychological state. She goes through a lot of anxiety, and I think that it's kind of therapeutic for her to do these videos where she talks about the feelings of anxiety that come up and how crafty can help her overcome that. And she's done videos where she's face visible, talking to the camera, and it's so funny because you know, she's a pretty girl. She's engaging to look at. She looks like she could be my friend if I met her in real life. But I feel a deeper connection with her when I'm watching her do her paper crafts. And I think it's because I'm one of those hands-on kind of people where, like, when I was in school and the teacher was talking, I would be drawing. If I'm out and I'm doing something, like even now, I'm playing with my ring. Like I like to be hands-on, engaged in something. And I think the reason I really love these YouTube channels where it's people crafting or people drawing, I even used to like love Bob Ross's videos, and like I know like there have been comments about how he was like hated in art school because it's a formulaic, repetitive sort of a style, like mass marketable wall art. But even still, I love watching that dude draw and like speak in his calming voice about there are no mistakes, there are only happy accidents, and this is your world. Like that, I love that stuff. Anyway, my favorite videos to watch are videos where people are drawing and either talking through their artistic process or talking about unrelated stuff as they draw. I went down a rabbit hole this week and started watching tons of videos of ladies making junk journals. And I say ladies because it's always ladies. I haven't yet seen a single guy do a junk journal. In fact, one of those ladies, I think her channel was called the Book Vandal, because she cuts up books and uses the pages and collages and stuff. But yeah, she was saying, so ladies, like, let me know in the comments what you think of this. And then she said, like, I'm saying ladies because I looked at my YouTube stats and 100% of my subscribers are female. And like, for a second, I'm sorry guys, don't feel bad. I love that you watch my videos. I appreciate you. Like, you are definitely welcome here. I love that you're here. Don't go away. Don't leave my channel. But for a split second, as this like crafty southern lady with her glue stick and her paper was saying like, so ladies, like, tell me in the comments. For a second, I was super jealous, thinking, how cool is it that her YouTube is like a girls club, like where she can talk about her paper crafts and there's no guys in the comments saying like, where are you? I want to see your face. Will you marry me? Blah, blah, fucking blah. Pardon my language. But like, it just sounded like it would be such a relief. And when I say guys, don't leave, like, I appreciate you, those aren't the ones I'm talking to. I'm not saying like I want people commenting like sick shit, trying to hit on me in my YouTube comments. Like, if you haven't noticed, I'll spell it out for you. If you haven't noticed, I made this YouTube channel to talk about things that interest me, to do like show and tells about my art and my jewelry, to talk about veganism, to talk about spirituality, to tell some ghost stories here and there, to talk about books I'm reading. I didn't start this YouTube channel as a dating profile. So I'm not here trolling through the comments thinking like, like, who can I hook up with? Like, I love my solitary existence. I'm kind of like a crazy cat lady, but I don't hoard cats. I only have 2 who I adopted, and I'm happy with that. But yeah, like, let me know in the comments how you feel about video styles. Like, do you prefer seeing my face as I talk to the camera, or do you prefer watching me draw or looking into my journal and seeing my hands and like and what I'm working on? Because I mean, it's not like I'm taking a vote. It's not like I'm going to switch back to face in front of the camera videos if more people prefer that. Like, no, I'm pretty set that I'm going to be doing the drawing style videos mostly. But I'm just curious to see, like, do you feel a relation to that? Do you enjoy that? Let me know. And meanwhile, let's get into what I would really want to do. Stay there. I'm going to be drawing. All right. So it's so funny, but now I feel like oh, it's so hard to put into words, but as soon as I put a stack of papers down and then set up the camera so it's aimed at that stack of papers, it's like I feel like myself again. So weird. Maybe I've got issues being in front of the camera because like the most solid life experiences I've had of being like in front of a camera, talking to a camera, happened when I was in that cult and had to go on stage every day and just bullshit for like an hour or two to like fill the time before the lazy ass cult leader got out of bed and like graced the stage with his divine presence to give his daily sad song. But anyway, yeah, maybe that's something for me to look into and see. But I definitely feel more in my comfort zone. So, okay, what you're looking at here, it's not like an ancient, dilapidated thing. This is one of my drawings that I've copied and then like enlarged and then printed out big. And then I coffee dyed it. So, okay, I told you when I was looking at the camera that I shouldn't say it so badly as if it's a horrible, awful thing to be in front of the camera. Like, good for those people who can make talking head videos and feel awesome. I am no longer one such person. But yeah, I told you I'd gone down a rabbit hole of watching videos where people make junk journals. If you don't know what a junk journal is, Google it and you're welcome. If you're a girl, if you're a guy, you probably won't get it. And I'm sorry if that sounds sexist. If you're a straight guy, you probably won't get it. But a junk journal is basically a handmade book filled with random papers that, like when people first started making junk journals, they were made out of actual junk. So we're talking like the envelopes that junk mail comes in, pages out of newspapers, like old receipts, like just whatever paper junk you have lying around. You sew it together into a little booklet and bind that in a larger book, and that larger book is called a junk journal. I first saw a junk journal back in my Emily Carr art school days when I was taking a printmaking class, and a girl in my class who, it's so funny, like at the time I didn't think much of her. She was just a classmate, like one of my peers at school, but in retrospect, like she had quite a big influence on my life because she's the same girl who first showed me the book Art Forms in Nature. That is one of my favorite books to just gaze at, to ponder the mysteries of existence. And she's also the same girl who first showed me a junk journal. She kept one and used it as her sketchbook. And so basically, she had like these pages all sewn together. Some were grid paper, some were lined paper, some were blank paper, some were this like ancient looking crumbly stuff like what I've got here that I deliberately coffee stained. I say deliberately because I never would have thought that I would on purpose take like a pristine sheet of white paper and then pour coffee on it. But it sounds so like counterintuitive to like grunge something up when it's pure. But anyway, like I used to flip through her sketchbook and just marvel at how tactile it felt. Like when you feel a piece of clean white paper, it doesn't really have any life to it. Or if you buy a brand new book from Amazon and you take it out of its cellophane wrap and you turn that brand new fresh page, I mean, as I say that, I'm getting the new book feels. Like there is a vibe to that too that's good. But there's something that feels so kinetically pleasing. Like if you're the kind of person who likes to work with your hands, to touch things, to feel things, there's something so much more pleasing about touching like a different variety of textured paper. And there's something pleasing about looking at paper that's got these like grungy looking pages and stuff. Sorry, I've got to pop my camera out of the thing for a second to plug in my cell phone. Wow, I am not on the ball today. I should have plugged this in before I started the video. But anyway, there's something so, it just feels more like somebody's heart has gone into it when you touch a sketchbook that isn't kept too preciously. And it's funny because in a previous video when I was talking about the things I hated about art school, I mentioned a quote from one of my teachers who told me that I was too precious with my work. Now what she was referring to, she meant that I didn't want to put colors in one of my abstract paintings that would throw off the aesthetic balance. Like I had a really nice muted palette going, and she told me that I should throw in a contrasting color just to jazz it up a bit, I guess. But to me, that painting was like a whole mood. You don't just throw in something to, like, okay, if you're baking a cake, you don't say like, okay, let's add some like dill pickle into this because then it's more like interesting to your palate. Like, fuck that. You want your cake to taste good, right? Well, the way I felt about my art, I wanted it to look good. I didn't want it to look jarring to the viewer or throw in, you know, a contrasting color because I didn't think it needed one. But as far as that goes, like, somebody commented on that one. I want to say it was, shoot, what's your name? Actually, I think you don't say your name in public anyway, but the guy who makes all the hilarious videos trolling on Nityananda cult members commented and said that in his experience in art school, when a professor says you're being too precious about something, it means that you're kind of like, and I'm paraphrasing, so correct me if I'm wrong, if I misinterpreted the comment, but it means that you're so perfectionistic about your work that you're not willing to explore and try something new, which could potentially expand your creative horizons. So for me, when it comes to sketchbooks, I totally understand how being too precious about a sketchbook limits the potential for growth in that visual capacity. Like, I have been the type of person with my sketchbooks where like I keep them zipped shut in like in a laptop case. It's so funny because like I'm rough and tumble with my MacBook, but like my sketchbook has its own like padded zipped case so that I don't dent any of the pages or bend any of the pages or, God forbid, stain any of the pages. But when this classmate of mine showed me her sketchbook, and it was a junk journal, so some of the pages looked super grungy and old like this, and some of them were just tracing paper that she had traced things onto, and others were lined binder paper, some with the lines going horizontally, and some where the orientation was flipped upside down so the lines were going vertically. Oh my goodness, like, to my craft loving, paper loving little soul, there was something just so satisfying about flipping through that journal. And it's funny because years later, I haven't thought about this since my days in art school, and I didn't know what a junk journal was back then. So I just said to her, like, wow, I love your sketchbook. Like, where did you buy this? And she laughed and she said, are you kidding? This is just like a junk journal that I threw together on the weekend. But it seemed so beautifully curated. Like, some of the magazine clippings that she had collaged into it were just so on point. Like, there was a vibe to it. Anyway, as I've told you in previous videos, I have really gotten into watching videos about pen paling, where people show the stuff that they're gonna send their pen pals, and they craft things together to send in the mail, like flat things. I've been loving those videos so much that YouTube started recommending for me to watch videos of other kinds of paper craft. And so about a week ago, I clicked on a video about junk journals. God help me, I'm laughing even as I say it because I didn't realize I was gonna go down that rabbit hole and spend like hours of my life watching, for the most part, like Southern accented farm wives do their journal crafting. But I really just love it. I love paper, I love crafting, and I love the fact that there are people out there like me who also love paper crafting, and the way that it feels to crunch a paper, and the way it looks to see like random stains on a paper that you've put there deliberately. Like, look at the way the coffee stained this. So anyhow, I've decided to try my hand at junk journaling. And one of the first videos I watched was how to make an envelope flipbook. And so I took these like plain white envelopes. They're like the cheapest white envelopes I could find at the dollar store. And what you do is like you stick them into each other, just like this. And then you've got this like little book where like you can stitch the junk journal pages between two of the envelopes here. So there's where your signature would go, and then you can decorate it. And then when it closes, you can put like a little thing onto the flap so when you open your book. Anyway, I am not describing it well. Like, don't watch my channel for a tutorial because I don't edit videos, so I don't have the patience for that. But anyway, it was a big mistake to make an envelope flipbook junk journal out of these kinds of white envelopes because, as I discovered, I didn't want the white paper to show. I wanted them to look like a real vintagey junk journal. So I spent an embarrassing number of hours working on it to make it look like something that wasn't just white envelopes. So this was my final piece. I'm gonna see if I can lift up the camera to get it all into view. Here we go. This is what I made. I feel like I'm a little kid doing show and tell. Like, I told you, like, the book Art Forms in Nature, which I've mentioned in other videos. There's a guy who commented, I think you're a dad. I think he's a dad that said he bought this for, like, to share with his kids, but it's by Ernst Haeckel. It's these, like, plates that he made with like studies of different sea creatures and stuff. Like, it's iconic in the realm of educational charts and like nature observation drawings. But anyhow, I was thinking like the first time I learned about junk journals was around the same time I found the art of Ernst Haeckel. So I wanted to do a junk journal inspired by his style. And I would never, ever, ever cut apart one of these pictures. Like, this book to me is precious. Like, I would never rip out a page and then paste it down on something, because just look at how cool these illustrations are. So, like a couple of months ago, I bought a book that I found at a craft shop that is like an Art Forms in Nature sample paper book where the prints have been turned into wrapping paper. Anyhow, I took a sheet of that paper, so not out of the actual book of his lithographs, but out of the book of wrapping paper made from his lithographs, and then I covered all of the white parts of the envelope with that paper, so it looks a little bit more vintage. And then I decided, like, I don't want the top flap of the envelope to just like hang there open, and I don't really like having a bunch of strings. Like, some people, when they make a junk journal, they'll kind of hold it together by wrapping strings around and dangling beads, but like, I like my paper to be just paper. So I found a really cool postcard that's this like it's this like educational plate of illustrations of different edible mushrooms. So I stuck that down and just left the top part unglued so that it's the closure for this little flip book. And then I added a wax seal in colors kind of similar. I went for like a fall vibes color scheme based on this paper. I did something that all these craft ladies whose channels I've been watching do to their paper, which is distress the edges. And I don't have any fancy supplies for this stuff yet, so they use this stuff called distress ink that I looked up, and it's like 25 bucks for an ink pad. So I just took my watercolor and just painted the edges dark to give it that same stained look, but for a fraction of the cost. Anyway, like opening this junk journal, I decided to make the inside like kind of collaged and papery the way they do, and like each envelope is a part of the book, so each different little section becomes a pocket. And like I said, it was a mistake to make it out of that white envelope because I didn't like the white paper showing, so I covered it with stuff. And in the first pocket, I added this little mini book that I made out of that same paper, put a little tag in it in one of the pockets, bunch of tea dyed, coffee dyed paper. In the back pocket, I put some strips of washi tape samples that are the same washi tape I decorated the book with. Then here we come to like the main journal part. I did like all kinds of coffee and tea dyed paper. I did page pullouts. You know those, some people get that tingly sensation when they hear paper getting crumbled, and so they watch those ASMR videos. I don't get an ASMR reaction. Like, I don't actually feel tingles in my head, but I do love this sound. I don't know, the sound of paper. Let me know in the comments if you know what I mean. Anyway, the middle section, this part took the longest. I hand tore little bits of origami paper. Then I distressed the edges with my watercolor paint. And then I glued them down to cover all of the white of the envelope, kind of inspired by fall leaves. And then into that pocket, I tucked this page of crystal and gemstones that I printed out and then coffee dyed the paper. FYI, if you use an inkjet printer and then you coffee dye your page, yeah, the ink will fade badly, so don't do that. This little piece is removable. I stuck it on with a paper clip. It can be used as a bookmark. I put a little mushroom stamp on the back. That was kind of my theme, right? Because on the cover, I put the like mushroom diagram, and then on this page, there's like a stamp from Guyana, like an old... I bought a bunch of stamps once that I just think it's cool looking at what art different countries choose to use as their representatives in their mail. So yeah, I kind of continued that theme. And then this is my favorite page. I covered this entire pocket all with vintage stamps, and then just stuck one more little sheet of that paper in it that I distressed the edges of. I'm such a nerd for this kind of stuff. Like, if you're still watching my channel at this point, it's probably because you also like art and crafts and paper. Anyway, and then on the last page, I left it so that the print of this beautiful illustration stays visible. And then I just folded these pockets out of an old book page that I coffee dyed. And I made these like little bookmarks out of paper clips that I put wax seal stamps on. They're more ornamental than practical because I think that wax would probably break off if it was handled roughly. But yeah, one more strip of that cool paper, that art forms in nature design. And then I thought I want to put a little message. I will sell this book, I think, in my new Etsy shop, the one with the stationery stuff. So I thought, like, an artist signs their work, I might as well put a little signature in it somewhere. But I made it in a way that it's removable, so if somebody doesn't want their journal signed by the person who made it, they could get rid of it. Anyway, that's my first attempt ever at making a junk journal. And I think I succeeded in making it look junky, but that's the aesthetic I was going for. Anyway, so all of these pages I brought out for my next little show and tell are drawings that I made that were in one of my self-published books called Meditations Manifest, a collection of free association pen and ink drawings. I think that's what it was called. And yeah, I just think they look so much cooler on distressed paper with like the coffee staining than they did when it was like a crisp white page. So I'll probably bind these into some kind of a junk journal too, and then we'll see what I do with them. But if I do that, I'll make another video, or I'll show it to you in another video. Anyhow, this was one of my all-time favorite drawings that I've ever done, because as I've mentioned in other Draw With Me videos, when I put my pen on the page, I never plan a composition. There's never an idea going in, like today I'm going to draw mountains, or today I'm going to draw clouds. Like it's always just random, like it is what it is. But this one, when I finished it, the first thing that I saw was like this grouping of people. And then it looked like they were bending back, like especially this guy in the back. By the way, these didn't intentionally get put on the page as people. It's not like I drew them. I think I drew it this way. So they were just, you know, decorations on the end of this other abstract element. But when I flipped the page, I felt like this is the correct orientation. Like it's meant to be seen landscape style. And that, yeah, I saw these people gazing upwards, and when I followed their gaze, I saw this thing that, like, holy crap, that's like they're staring at the moon. So I called it moon gazers. And then there's this kind of funny figure with like a medicine wheel face pointing towards other stuff. Anyway, when I go down that path of interpreting my own abstract art, just don't let me indulge in that, because I could talk for hours. And I think that's the joy of abstract art to me. It's that even the artist can feel surprised by what the picture looks like when it's finished. Anyway, I told you when I was talking to the camera, when it was my face, how much I love Josephine Wall. I'm sure you've seen her art on greeting cards and stuff, but like, yeah, there's something just so fantastical about her work. I love how she depicts like Mother Nature personified. Like I love how she'll put a beautiful woman's face, and then when you look deeply into it, like the waterfall is just coming down from her head. It's like her consciousness is becoming reality. Anyway, she's made some gorgeous work. She's also done a lot of environmental activism in her work. And I feel that like those paintings are more her than like this smiling. I mean, she's a happy looking elvish kind of a woman herself. Like, of course that's her, but I just feel like when I look at her paintings, I feel like I'm having a conversation with her. Whereas if I look at her portrait, it's more like I'm watching her pose for the camera. And okay, thank you to Jacqueline if you're watching this video, because she was the first person to buy something from my new Etsy shop where I'm doing like stationery stuff, and I think I'm gonna also start selling some junk journals as I make them. But yeah, there's something super intimidating about opening a new Etsy shop, because Etsy is a selling format where customers don't just see the item you're listing, they also see how many sales you've had and what reviews people have given to your orders. So for my jewelry store, I feel like super confident in that shop. I've got like over 1,600 sales, almost like 99% of the reviews are 5-star. Like that shop is healthy. where if somebody sees a piece of my jewelry listed, they know I'm not going to rip them off. They can see what previous customers have said. But with my new shop, where I'm selling like washi tape samples and wax seal stickers and stuff, like, people might not have that same confidence, because if they look at that shop, it's had like 4 sales now and 0 reviews. So they might be thinking like, am I gonna get scammed here? Am I gonna buy this thing and never get it? Anyway, I hope that didn't just show this address. This is my latest. I'm covering it up with a leaf. But yeah, somebody ordered some craft supplies from me, and I decided to surprise her by like really decorating the package. So what she ordered was washi tape. I wish I hadn't sealed it up so I could show you the actual thing she ordered, but it's like a $5 thing. And usually, like, when you buy something online, if it's a cheap thing that you're buying, people don't put much effort into packaging it. Like, when people buy my jewelry, I wrap it up in recycled bubble wrap, but then I put that in a drawstring pouch, and I always throw in a little gift with it. But I thought, you know what, I'm gonna do the same thing with stuff in this store. So since it was a space-themed washi tape, I found these awesome space stamps to send it in, and I decorated the envelope with washi tape, and then I decided to do the back of the envelope like Happy Mail. I figured that I can wrap my return address label around so that it's not taking up too much space. But yeah, I went all out. I did like the little UFO wax seal, some washi tape strips to hold it shut, and I just felt like showing that, because when I talk about pen pal letters and paper crafting and what I'm sending to people, I know I've said in previous videos that I'm going to start showing you my letters, but I just keep forgetting to do that. This one is for, okay, Elena, if you're watching this video, just look away, because spoiler alert, this is going to be your next letter. One of my pen pals is really into plants and botanical stuff, and it's her birthday this month, so I thought the next letter I send her, I'm going to make it kind of a little birthday gift. So I made another little envelope book, and here's how good they look when it's not those like plain, boring, cheapy white envelopes. I made one lime green and one kind of turquoise going with that plant theme. And then I picked a writing paper. I'm still waiting for her next letter before I start writing. So I did like all the crafting in advance, and I can show you this because the letter's not written yet. But I picked out this botanical themed paper so that the letter will look, you know, just as crafty as the envelope book that it's in. And then I got really into it and started picking out little gifts for her. Like, I found a tea that has a pretty green packaging. I found these little thingies. They're just made out of paper, but when you stick them together, whoops. And now I'm gonna struggle with it, so it'll look like a bad little gift, but that's only because I'm still trying to concentrate on talking and filming too. But yeah, when you stick them together, it becomes this cute little 3D cactus that you can hang by your computer or wherever you feel like it. Anyway, that's the kind of thing that I see on videos by Vivian, not Yvonne. I remembered her name, Vivian, at the Paper Letter blog. And yeah, she's the first one I saw make one of these little envelope pouches. And then on the other side, I'm just gonna fill it with little sticker flakes for her that are still following that theme, botanical sort of theme. And some sticky note pages and a cool like floral postcard. Anyway, this is far from finished. See this little guy? This came on a pair of socks that I bought recently. And like, once you start doing junk journals and pen pal letters and paper crafting, like, trash becomes treasure. As soon as I saw this tag, when I was pulling the tags off to recycle them, I thought like, whoa, that's gonna go really nicely in some project at some point. So my plan for this is to paint around the edges with watercolors to make it look old, like that last junk journal I showed, and then do some kind of collage on the back, and then I'll tie like a green hemp string to it or something. Make it a cute little mail tag that she can either craft with or something. And my plan for the cover is to put, like, I want to cut a triangle out of a pretty piece of paper, glue it here, glue, I'm thinking a string under it that can be wrapped around to seal this. And I know I said earlier that I don't always like having strings hang from books, but I think in this case, because it's her birthday, that string wrapped around it will make it feel more like a present, you know, like a ribbon. Okay, and the last thing for my show and tell before I start drawing a picture is not these bracelets I made, but aren't they also pretty? The last thing is, okay, now Jacqueline, if you're watching, look away because it's gonna be a spoiler. But Jacqueline, my viewer, who is also my pen pal, who was the first person to buy anything from my Etsy shop, I was thinking that I wanted to make her next letter like crystal and gemstone themed, because that's still my favorite theme. So I spent like a good few days taking photos of some of my gemstones and then also searching out photos of like beautiful rare minerals and crystals, and then figuring out with my very poor Photoshop skill. I don't even have Photoshop. I've got like whatever comes loaded up free on a Mac. I forget what it's called, but I painstakingly removed the backgrounds from all of them and then turned them into this writing paper. So I've printed this out. This is what I'm going to write her next letter on. You'll notice that like in my botanical book there was only like 2 sheets. That's because Elena and I we keep our letters short, like usually it's just 1 or 2 pages. But Jacqueline and I think we just have so much in common that we have written some pretty long letters. So yeah, I just loved how this turned out. I found a template for just regular lined paper, like that typical stuff you get in your binder as a kid. And I made that into this PDF, and then I just kind of arranged my favorite crystals and gems into it. So yeah, and I also made a page of just all of those crystals and gems that can be individually, don't mind the Christmas tree, that was for a different project. But I made a page with like just all those different gems, thinking that that can be printed on sticker paper, and then each individual little crystal can be cut out and used as a sticker. Now as I open this book, I'm getting pretty close to being done and ready to scan these in and make that next coloring book. So let me see if I can find, here we go, a blank page to do some drawing and talking today. And yeah, I did one video once where I mentioned that whenever there are smudges on a page, I take that like as a creative challenge to see how I can make the smudges a part of the drawing, like work with them instead of fighting them. And so I'm going to start this drawing here by just putting some lines down that kind of encircle the smudgy shapes, and we'll build it from there. But anyway, getting back into the spiral of searches that I've been doing and videos I've been watching about junk journaling. Okay, I want to explain myself how earlier I said if you're a straight guy, you probably won't get it. It's so funny. It's not just because that one channel, the lady was saying like, okay, ladies, like let's talk about this in the comment section, because 100% of her viewers are female. Like that's part of it. But the other part of it is sometimes when I make jewelry, I put on like comedians in the background. I love listening to stand-up comedy. That's like, you know how some people put on music as they do the dishes and they listen to their music as they do stuff? I love that too, but that mood, I think I'm the kind of person, when I listen to music, I feel what the artist felt when they sang that song. So like pop music just feels really contrived and annoying, and I don't like it. I've got a boomer's music taste. My favorite music is classic rock. I'll put on Heart, I'll put on Fleetwood Mac, I'll put on The Doors. The Doors are possibly my favorite band ever. But that's the kind of thing, like you have to be in the mood for that kind of music. So usually, like when I'm doing jewelry, I'll put on like a podcast like the Joe Rogan Experience, or I really got into videos by Dakota of Earth after he interviewed me for his podcast about my cult experience. Actually, long before that, the first time I heard of him was when he sent me a message saying that he was in Bangalore and asking like, where is the Nityananda cult, because he wanted to go there and film a video. And like I tried talking him out of it. I was like, whoa, like don't put yourself in that kind of danger. Like if they realize you're there to expose them, like their thugs could. Anyway, I was worried for the guy. But he filmed it covertly enough that he wasn't in danger. And it was a really well done video. Anyway, when I watched that video of his, I really resonated with what he had to say about meditation and consciousness, and, you know, why he himself was skeptical of gurus. It was just so well done. And he's a world traveler. Like he does videos about shamanic experiences in South America and medicine ceremonies, and like witches in Eastern Europe who he spent time with. Like it's just so fascinating the amount of people he has connected with and introduced in his videos, and what he has to share about the experiences he's gained in all of those different interactions. But anyway, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I listen to a lot of, you know, comedians, stand-up comedy. And one of those comedians was talking about his wife. And it's so funny because the comedians that you will find the funniest are always the comedians who you have the most in common with. Because when they're like, hey, don't you hate it when like you're standing at the mirror and you're about to do your makeup and then your cat bumps your elbow and like your eyeliner goes up to your eyebrow? Like that's the kind of thing you'll laugh at if you're a girl who does makeup and who has cats and whose cats often get in her way. But like if you're a dude who has a dog, you might hear that and just be like, I don't get it, right? So the comedians who I find the funniest, of course, are comedians who I relate to. So I don't know what I was doing watching this like Mormon dad comedian like making his stand-up comedy routine out of like freaking Utah, because I have shit all in common with the guy. But for whatever reason, like I sometimes leave YouTube on so that whatever video it recommends just automatically starts playing next. So I was probably listening to like Sarah Silverman or that funny British lady, I forget her name, like another comedian I like. And the next video that just started playing was this Utah dad. And he was talking about in the morning when he wakes up and his wife is there to wake him up out of bed. And like already, I'm unable to relate because I don't have a wife, thank God. They sound so naggy and annoying from what the comedians say. But yeah, as a single person, I enjoy the freedom that I have to sleep as long as I want in the morning, to get up when I want to get up, to do what I want to do. But yeah, he was like, Yeah, some mornings I wake up and my wife is right there and she's like, get up, I've got a big day planned for us. And he was saying, like, whenever his wife will wake him up and say she's got a big day planned, his first thought is like, oh, crap. Because it was a Mormon, so he didn't say, oh, fuck. I think he said something like, oh, fudge. Like, what is it that we're going to have to do today? Because he knows, he says, he knows she's not going to say, like, I've got our day planned. Like, first I'm going to bring you waffles in bed, and then we're going to watch the basketball game. Like, the day she'll have planned will be like, get up, get dressed, and clean out the gutters, or you're gonna take my car to the shop, or like it's always a chore for him when she wakes him up with a day planned. And so one day she wakes him up, tells him to get up and get dressed because she's got an idea for something they should do that day. And her idea is that she wants to take him with her to the craft store. And like, as I'm listening to him talk, I'm thinking, like, that poor woman. Like, she's gonna drag this petulant, complaining husband to, like, Michael's Crafts, and he's gonna be there, like, tapping his toes in a hurry. Like, I'm thinking, that poor woman, like, why doesn't she just go by herself? But yeah, he starts describing to all the male viewers who don't know what it's like to go with your wife to the craft store. And he's like, she's holding up pads of paper, and the only reason those papers are even made is for women to tear them into little pieces and make even crappier books out of them than the book they're already made into. And like, all the dudes in the audience are laughing. And he's like, okay, here's the definition of a craft. A craft is a thing that you make yourself out of materials that you have available on hand at home. To get a crappier version of a thing that you could just buy ready-made for about 10 times the price. And I freaking loved that. I love that. It's funny because it's so true. A journal, like, for example, this beautiful paper blanks journal that I've been working in for the past few months or so. I think this journal was like $35, maybe 40 Canadian, so not outrageously expensive, but it's a little up there because it's high quality. It's got the cool little tabs, and it has the built-in ribbons. Anyway, a junk journal, like if I were to make a journal like this myself, I could go to the craft store, and I've looked this up. You can buy these little brass hinges that go onto journals. Like if you want to make a journal yourself, you can buy those, and they're about 15 bucks. And you can buy like ribbons that get made into bookmarks, and you can buy like the edging material that they use to sew all the different papers in, and you can buy like the end papers that go into these. Okay, this is a bad example because I've collaged into mine a ton, but like the specific kind of paper that finishes a journal like that, you can buy all of those things. But if I were to buy the raw materials that go into a journal to make one myself, it would never be like manufacturer's perfect as this one is. So it would be like a bit of a crappier version, and it would cost like easily over $100. Now, like as a woman who loves crafting and who loves like the feeling of something that's like unique and custom made and nobody else has it, like it's a one-of-a-kind artisan journal, I would actually value more a junk journal that somebody has made themselves with all their craft supplies, and where they've thought consciously about, you know, where do I put a pocket, and how do I decorate this little cover page, and what kind of collage should I put in here. I find that to be like the heart and soul of a thing, is like the crafted element or the artist's hand. I like to see the brush strokes in the painting, you know? I like to see the little glitches in a drawing like this where, like, you know, that little shape was meant to be floating, but it's touching here. I like those little perfect imperfections, so to speak. But it's so funny hearing a husband describe what a craft is. Like, it's a homemade version of something that's a lot more expensive than the better version you can just go out and buy that somebody else already made. And that's why I said earlier, if you're a straight guy, you probably won't get the fascination that so many of us girls have for junk journals and for just paper crafts in general, you know? Or making something look shabby chic. I love the shabby chic look. I love the, I've loved the Stevie Nicks aesthetic long before that dog face guy made his video with cranberry juice. Mind you, I am so happy that, and I'm not insulting him, calling him dog face. If you've been living under a rock and don't know who I'm talking about, there's this guy, his screen name, his handle is like Dogface420. He filmed this little TikTok video. If you haven't been living under a rock, you're like, shut up, Sarah. We all know what this is already. But I do have some viewers once in a while who don't know these things. So for their sake, let me explain. He's cruising along on his longboard on his way to work, sipping his Ocean Spray cran raspberry juice, and he's listening to Fleetwood Mac's song Dreams. And like, it's just such a good feeling. What's funny is that, like, when I used to listen to that song, it would give me that, like, a totally different vibe, because it's like it's a breakup song. Anyway, but he's cruising along to it with this like big smile on his face, drinking his cran raspberry juice, and it's just such a good vibe. But I've loved Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac my entire life. My whole life. Like, they might even be my favorite band, maybe tied with the Doors. And I think it's in my blood to love Fleetwood Mac, because my mom's told me that when she was pregnant with me, she was listening to Fleetwood Mac like every day. That was in her dashboard in her car. My middle name is Stephanie, after Stephanie Nicks, who we call Stevie Nicks. But yeah, my aesthetic, like the way I've decorated my apartment, it's all like, I've got tapestries on the walls and origami things here and there, and like my big feature wall in my living room. Maybe I'll show a picture of it in a future video. I want to kind of reorganize the display on it first before I show pictures, but I bought this set of cork boards and I painted them solid black, and then found black push pins to put into them to hang my jewelry from. And it's not that I love dark stuff, but it's not like I was thinking I want black in my apartment. It's that gemstones look the best against a black backdrop. And so I made that basically to store all the Etsy jewelry that I make before I sell it, so that it's easy to see. Like, I know where each piece is. One bulletin board, like one cork board, is all bracelets, and we've got the necklaces one, and we've got the men's jewelry one. Anyway, like I love the aesthetic of what people would call shabby chic. And I read this interview once with Stevie Nicks that there's a lyric in one of her songs where she sings about paper flowers. And she was talking in this interview about how, like, before her band got super popular, she had a really limited budget. Like, she wasn't a wealthy woman, so she had to decorate her first apartment using basically stuff she made herself. And she started making these paper flowers. And she couldn't afford to go out and buy a fancy vase or, you know, a fresh bouquet every day. So she made flowers out of paper and just decorated her space with that, because even though she couldn't afford an interior designer or, you know, a high-end designer furniture. She still wanted her place to look like hers. And she's got that gypsy feeling vibe to her. Like, she's got all those flowing scarves that she wears and those long skirts and that untamed kind of hair. Like, that's the look that I like the best, is her style. Anyway, where was I going with that? I was talking about art and tactile things. Oh, I was, again, the junk journals. So the aesthetic that I just gravitate to the most when it comes to interior design, like, there's nothing I dislike more than like a beige wall and a white marble floor, or like, I don't like the boring look of stuff. I like lots of colors and not mass-produced furniture. I like I've got a trunk that I keep in my kitchen next to the stove that I put my recycling on that trunk. And it's a toy chest that my grandma's brother made for me when I was a little kid. Like, my great uncle made that. Like, I love pieces that have history to them, that have a story. It's funny, I read something once about the mind of artists compared to the minds of people who consider themselves more practical, like artist versus business person. And it's said that when a business person decorates their living space, they go for function. And when an artist decorates their living space, they go for story, like relatability and meaning. And that, like, when a business person gets dressed, they think of what's the current style, what's the current season, what's the best representation of my goals. And that when an artist gets dressed, they think of what's the best representation of me. Like, what do I love? Okay, if somebody is looking at my earrings, what do I want those to say about me? Not what do I want to achieve and will this be the correct uniform, but who am I? And does this represent that? And it was a fascinating article. I wish I had saved that. I have the habit of reading, like, whatever little articles Psychology Today publishes. I started following them online after getting out of the cult. But it's too bad. Like, when I read interesting little things like that, I need to start saving them so that if I ever randomly mention it in a video, I can put a link to it. So unfortunately, I can't give credit to the author of that article or even tell you which website it was from, because I honestly don't remember. But it was so relevant to me that, like, yeah, I do that. Like, when I decorate my place, I don't even own a kitchen table and chairs, but I've got the coolest vintage lamp. I've got like this neat set of informational illustrations of different crystals and minerals. Like, I didn't think of functionality. I thought only of not just the aesthetic that I like, but stuff that means something to me. Like, I don't want to just put things on the wall that fill that space and look pleasing to the eye. I want to put things on the wall that fill that space and are pleasing to the eye, and that when I look at them, I remember how grateful I am to be me. Like, I love my life. I love that I get to make jewelry. I love that I get to draw pictures like this. I love the fact that I get to decide what I want to do when I want to do it. And that might sound silly if you've never been in a cult, but as somebody who has had an existence where my time wasn't my own and my very self wasn't my own, my skin wasn't my own, I was ordered to get this tattoo of a Trishul. And yeah, it's a great symbol of the power of Shiva and Kali, but I do feel pretty damn awkward going to the grocery store in Lethbridge, Alberta, where people see that and think it's a symbol of Satan. Like, I wouldn't have gotten that myself if it hadn't been instructed to me. So yeah, after having lived in a place where I have to take a cold water bucket bath every morning at 3:30 a.m. and start doing yoga at 4, or I will get yelled at or sent to do manual labor. After having been in a cult, my God, the gratitude I have for hot running water, like the hot showers I get to take every day, the soft bed I get to sleep in. I don't have to crash on a hard floor in a big lecture hall where like 2 hours later I have to wake up and stand on stage and talk. Like, whew, it feels good to be self-sovereign. So when I was decorating my apartment, I was going for stuff that reminded me of how great it is to be self-sovereign. I did an interview on Rachel Bernstein's podcast. She's pretty cool. She was I think she was the guest expert on Scientology and the aftermath on A&E. And I've also seen her giving like the expert analysis of the Nexium cult, which is that other shit organization that traps people's consciousness and enslaved them. I shouldn't speak in present tense, it's past tense, because that prick, like Keith Raniere, is in jail for life. I'm so happy about that. He was given 120 years sentence. That's like, I don't know how many consecutive back-to-back life sentences. But yeah, Rachel Bernstein, she's a really cool psychologist whose specialty is cult abuse. And so she's done all kinds of stuff with people who are escaping Scientology. She interviewed me about my experience with the fraud in India. But in a podcast I did with her, like before we even before she started recording, like when we were just chit-chatting before, she had complimented me on my jewelry designs. And I had told her that like when I was in the cult, I was only allowed to wear rudrakshas, like those brown seed beads that are symbols of Shiva. And that it took me a while, like when I came back to Canada and started living my authentic life once again, it took me a while to start wearing multicolored gemstones once again, which is something that I had done all my life. Like I've always loved gemstone jewelry. But in that cult, we were only allowed to wear orange, the color of the kavi, the color of the sannyas sampradaya, like the symbol of renunciation. We were only allowed to wear orange clothes and brown jewelry, rudraksha seeds. And I love, not the cult, but I did love that aesthetic. I really, really love the look of jatas, like of dreadlocks. I love the look of a sannyasi's robe. I love that feeling of rudraksha beads. Like it's got that same aged to perfection feeling that a good junk journal has. But even more than that, I love colors, rainbows, gemstone jewelry, like black opals that have different flashes that look like the aurora borealis. Like I love gemstones. And so I was telling Rachel that when I decorated my apartment, I covered an entire wall in just bright sheets of colorful origami paper. It's like a collage wall. And that I deliberately chose, instead of painting the wall one solid color, I chose to go with multicolored origami pages as a rebellion against feeling controlled in my color scheme. Like I was so controlled for 3 years where my room had to be the color of kavi, my clothes had to be the color of kavi, everything around me had to be dull orange, which to be honest is my least favorite color. My least favorite color. My favorite colors are purple, blue, turquoise, and green. Like I'm a cool color kind of girl. And all I was allowed to wear were these warm colors that, yeah, they just get so boring after a while. That same color every damn day. And of course, I bought into it at the time that it's to break our ego's desire to express ourselves through fashion, and it's part of the process, and that we'll get enlightened by doing it. But you never get enlightened by forcing yourself to do something that doesn't come naturally. You can never be enlightened by something that you're resisting. And so what all these cult leaders do, they trap these people who are seeking a higher spiritual awakening by saying, do what I tell you to do and you'll get awakened. And so those people start feeling stressed out and judged and frightened and incomplete and like they're not good enough, because the cult leaders are always just barking orders and yelling at them, but it's never enough. That's the opposite of enlightenment. Like the people in those cults start to feel like it's like a regression. Suddenly you're a little kid at school getting disciplined every day. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, like I've been reading the book Scarred by Sarah Edmondson, who you'll know her if you've seen The Vow, which is like that expose show about NXIVM cult. It's just incredible. She describes it so well. Like, she got into this cult called NXIVM to better herself and grow in her expertise. And I think it was supposed to be like a training program for executives. Like, it was a more corporate structured thing than the shitty nitty cult I was in. But yeah, they had to do things like call the leader of the cult Vanguard, as if he's some great thing. And he's not, by the way. He's just a little dweeb. I think like CNN News called him a doughy dweeb in like bad clothes. It was so funny. So funny. Because you expect a cult leader to be wearing like robes and, I don't know, some kind of spiritual garb, whatever that is. But you see Keith Raniere and he's just like this dumb looking guy. And I guess people say the same thing about the fraud who calls himself Nityananda, who I used to follow. But when you're under the spell of one of those narcissistic psychopaths, you start seeing them the way they tell you to, not the way they actually are. So when he would get on that stage and say, I am the most beautiful being in all of the planets, is like, instead of seeing an overweight, awkward Indian man with fake dreadlocks and like a shit ton of fake gold jewelry, instead of seeing what he really is, suddenly you see like this most amazing being in all of the universes, or like however he would call it. It's like the hypnotic spell that they weave on you. Like it's so funny when I see pictures of that fraud now, all I see is this like disgusting looking predator. But back when I was under his spell, I would look at him and actually think he's Sundareshwara, like the most beautiful form of Shiva. It's such a crazy thing, that kind of mind control, where like anybody else in the world who isn't brainwashed by him would see him for the scoundrel that he was. But if you're somebody who eats, sleeps, breathes, and lives his teachings, his programming, yeah, like you'd start to think he was the greatest and that everybody else in the world is just trying to be him. And it's so cool for me to read Sarah Edmondson's experiences with NXIVM, or to hear about Leah Remini's experiences with Scientology, because when I would see Keith Raniere, I would just see like this idiot, this loser. He's talking circles around the subject. He's not answering a question straight. He's trying to riddle the minds of his followers with conspiracies against himself to make it sound like he's a good guy and the courts are against him. But people brainwashed by him see him and think he's the world's most intelligent man and he's going to raise human consciousness. The same shit Nityananda followers think about him. And the same shit Scientologists would think about L. Ron Hubbard. I think there was a comedian who made a really funny joke about that, saying like, oh, it was, of course, it was Joe Rogan. And he was saying that, like, it's so funny. If you look at the history of religions, the older the religion is, the more socially acceptable it is. Like, for the most part, nobody is going to tell somebody that they're like a delusional, brainwashed idiot because they believe in Jesus or Krishna or, you know, the Dalai Lama, because those particular cults are steeped in so much historical tradition that people take them for granted as legit. But if you're following a religion and the leader is a science fiction writer from the 60s named Ron, like, it just doesn't sound as realistic. And I always laugh when I hear about NXIVM because I have an uncle named Keith, and he is like the most down-to-earth, intelligent, kind person you could ever meet. Like, he's an all-around good guy. So it's just so funny to hear people talk about these experiences in NXIVM where, like, and then Keith took me as his sex slave, and then Keith made me get his initials branded into my skin, and then, like, Keith used advanced psychological mind control methods to trauma bond all of us together. I have trouble not, like, laughing because when I hear the name Keith, I still think of my nice uncle. It's so funny. Whereas the cult that I was in, I've never met another person named Nityananda, you know? I don't have an Uncle Swamiji. So it felt a little bit more distanced from real life. It's so interesting. Same thing with like Scientology and that crazy narcissistic manipulator called David Miscavige. I don't have any uncles named David, but I've known a lot of Davids in my life, and none of them are frightening like that dude is. Anyway, I think I've talked enough for this video. I went off on a lot of different tangents, but it's starting to get dark outside and I still have to take my Etsy orders to the post office, so I'm gonna call it a day. I think there are enough things I talked about that, if any one of those subjects interests you personally, just let me know in the comments, and that'll give me some ideas for what I can talk about in my next Draw With Me video. And then I don't know what I'm gonna do, because I think, like, I'm damn near my goal of filling this whole sketchbook, at which point this little series is going to end and I'm going to self-publish these as a coloring book. Or maybe I'll print them out and coffee dye them and do it as like a self-published artist book. I don't know. I'm starting to get lots of ideas over here. But yeah, if any of this interested you specifically, if you've got any questions, I always read all of the comments on whatever is my newest video published. And yeah, so yeah, if you've ever commented on a video of mine that's like a year old and thought like, oh, that, you know, that girl is too busy to respond to her viewers. Like, it's not true. It's just that I've got so many videos that I can't possibly see all the comments on all of them. So I always read and reply to the comments on my newest video. So if you're seeing this video and it's still like early to mid-November, chances are I will see your comment and reply to it. If you're seeing this in the future, and you want to talk about one of these things or comment on this, just go to my main channel and see whatever is my newest video and click on that and leave a comment on that. That's how you can be guaranteed I'll see it. Anyhow, enough rambling. I think I might just leave this one at this. My favorite part of this whole drawing is one of the first things I did, and that's this little circular thing up here. It reminds me of like those really cool like landscape formations you see in you know, like in glaciers and in mountainous areas where the ice is kind of interacting with the landscape, and then like the sun shining behind it. That's what I'm seeing, or like the crest of a wave or something. Oh, I just realized I did 2 of them without even trying to. It's so funny how, like when you do, I bet there would be somebody out there who could do like a psychological analysis of a person's mental state by looking at their art. I'd be interested in that, if that's a field. Sign me up. That's what I would study. But it's so funny, like looking at abstract drawings to see what comes out. Very interesting. And I love seeing your art too if you're watching this. So I'm still saving images sent by viewers. If you draw something and then tag me on Instagram just to let me know it's your art, and that I can show it in an upcoming video of viewer art that I've been talking about for like 50 years now that I still haven't done. No, I've been talking about it for maybe like 5 or 6 months now. It's been a while. But yeah, I'm still collecting images for that. So let me know if you've got a piece that you would like included, and I will give you a psychological, psychiatric analysis based on your art. No, I'm joking. I totally don't do that. I'll just show it in a video and mention like my thoughts and feelings. It'll be like a friendly critique, not like an art school critique where I try to tear it down. Like I'll build it up. Don't worry, I'll be nice. I'm always nice. I'll be nice. Anyhow, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're a paper-loving, crafty girl like I am, you're probably not even watching anymore. You've probably like searched junk journals, and you're probably busy watching like a Texas housewife blissfully bind together like a bunch of papers out of books that she bought in thrift stores, and you're probably loving it. But if you haven't done that yet, and you haven't ever looked at junk journals or junk journal process videos, like, my goodness, you are in for a treat, I think, if you like that kind of stuff too. So have fun with that, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Much love, stay happy, enjoy your life, draw if you have a pen and paper. Bye for now.